Hi, my name is Jeff Price. I'm the CEO and founder of Audium and the former CEO and founder of TuneCore, and before that co-ran a record label called Spin Art Records. I invited people to tweet or email me questions about the music industry that I could answer for you. And this is the second video. I'm going to do sort of a part two here to Chris, who basically asked me, how do I best set up my infrastructure to license and collect as an independent artist? And if you go back to look at the first video, which talks about a self-published songwriter versus a publishing administrator, the 6 copyrights that come with that, the licensing and collection, it sets the foundation for most of my answers. So make sure you go and watch that. So to answer the question, as an independent artist, what do you do and how do you get yourself set up? So the first thing you got to remember is that there are 2 copyrights, right? There's one for the recording and one for the lyric and melody. And if you've already watched the other video, I apologize, but let me do it again. Sony Records hires Whitney Houston to sing I Will Always Love You. So the recording is owned by Sony Records. On the other hand, Dolly Parton wrote the lyric and melody. That is the second copyright in that recording. So there's 2 copyrights in the recording, one for the recording itself and one for the lyric and melody. So in this particular case, I'm being asked, what should an independent artist do? I'm going to make an assumption. Okay, this is very US-centric information, by the way, although most of it applies abroad. But I'm going to make the assumption that you both own the sound recording, which is represented by a P with a circle. That's just the way it gets represented. That stands for phonogram. And you are also the person that wrote the lyric and the melody, all by yourself, because that makes it real easy. And that's a C with a circle around it. Right? To provide context, you go back to the Sony Records thing. Sony Records owns the recording of I Will Always Love You, but Dolly Parton wrote the lyric and melody and she owns that. You can, however, be both things. And that's what technology has enabled. It has enabled artists to have access to all the things that they would need in order to potentially have a career in the music industry. The hard part, learning how to record and write and sing and mix and master, that's still up to you. But once you've got that done and you've written the song and you've recorded the song, you now have the ability to distribute it at a click of a button around the world into the biggest music services. Right? Go to DistroKid as an example. By the way, I highly recommend DistroKid as the distributor of choice. DistroKid. No, I don't own them. No, it is not my company. Just they've impressed the hell out of me. So if you're looking for a way to distribute a recording that you did, whether you wrote it or not, it's irrelevant right now, I would hit up distrokid.com. They're cheap, horrible word to use. They're less expensive, but they've got great feature sets. And the people that run the company, good people with their hearts in the right place, I hate to say this, but just far superior to my old company, TuneCore, that I left in 2012. Kicks the crap out of CD Baby as well, in my opinion. Less expensive, better feature sets, great customer care. They'll do you solid. They'll do you well. Again, my recommendation. Anyway, so you're an artist and you now have written a song and you've recorded the song. So the first question I'm going to focus on is, what do you do with the recording of the song? Well, the first thing is you should probably distribute it out into the music services where people go to buy or listen to music. And you probably all know what those are because you do it yourself. So to get into those services, iTunes, I guess, no longer exists now. To get into those services, Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play, which I think is winding down and being merged with YouTube Music. Pandora has an interactive service. Who am I missing in here? Missing another big one. Amazon, there we go, Amazon Prime, Amazon Music. Those are your biggies. To get into them, you most likely cannot pick up the phone and call them and say, hi, Amazon, it's me, Joe Smith. I did a recording, I want to send it to you to go into your store. They'll probably won't respond to that. So instead what you do is you go to a distributor, and that distributor has the relationships with Apple Music, Spotify, etc., right? And then they will distribute your recording into these services. And what's really happening here is you are giving them a rights grant. So this is you, and you've recorded the song. And when you've recorded the song, it exists digitally on your computer, I suppose, because we don't really make CDs or vinyl or cassette anymore. What you're going to do is take this right that you own, because you own the copyright, you're going to transfer that right to them. That's what you're doing when you sign up with them. and then they're going to then transfer the right to them. Right? So what we've just done here is, if you go back to the old days, you had the artist would go to a label, the label would have a deal with the distributor, and the distributor would then put the music into the music store. Right? That's the food chain of the past. What's happened with technology is the label has been removed, and now the artist can go directly to the distributor to get into the store. And then the distributors have different business models. For example, DistroKid will take none of the money that you make and give it all to you. CD Baby has something where they'll take typically 9% of the money every time the music sells, but won't charge you an upfront fee, and so forth and so on. So, get rid of that. So the first thing you should do is distribute your sound recordings, in my opinion. The second thing you should do, at least here in the United States, is you should make sure you register with the U.S. Copyright Office. Okay? Oh, God, that's supposed to be a C and it looks like a G. The U.S. Copyright Office. You want to register your copyright. Copy ring. Oh, my God. Let's try that again. Copyright. Okay? Go online, type register copyright with the U.S. Copyright Office. The Google result, go there. It's going to cost a fee, but you should do it. The reason you should do it is because it gives you protections. It allows you to pursue copyright infringement in the event somebody steals your recording without a license from you. You can then sue them, and you can get a certain amount of money for that, if called statutory damages, which could be quite a lot, up to $150,000 for each infringing use, if it's willful copyright and a court or a judge or a jury decides that. But you're not eligible to get that unless you register. If you don't register, you cannot pursue these statutory damages. So I would recommend that. The next thing that I would do is I would register with an organization called Sound Exchange.com. It is free, and it will get you money whenever your sound recording is played in a digital way, in a very specific way. Whenever there's a non-interactive, meaning you can't pick and choose, start, stop, go backwards, go forwards, and so forth. Whenever there's a non-interactive digital, so it can't be AM or FM, it has to be digital, DMCA compliant stream of your recording, it generates money that has to be paid to Sound Exchange, who then will remit the payment to you. I will do my own separate video on Sound Exchange, but for the moment, go and register with Sound Exchange. You need to tell them the name of the recording, some information about the release. We call that metadata, by the way. Very unsexy word, metadata. Words that describe music, the recording artist, the year it was released, the genre, how long the song is, who owns the copyright. That's all metadata. So you need to give them metadata about the recording, and you also need to give them metadata about who performed the recording. There could be 5 band members, there could be 4, there could be 2, there could be 12. Look at Arcade Fire, there's 300. So that was a joke. So you need to give Sound Exchange this information, because what Sound Exchange does is it pays back money to the entity that controls the sound recording, but it also gives money back to the artists that performed that sound recording, even if they're backup singers and so forth. So register with Sound Exchange. Then the next thing that I would do for the recording, I would think about YouTube. Create a YouTube channel, create a YouTube artist channel. Now we're getting to the world of YouTube, which can go on for layers and layers. Utilize YouTube, upload your sound recording, make a video if you can, upload it to your channel, provide links in your video back to your sound recordings in music services or YouTube Music. The other thing that I would do is I would go into the music services themselves, Apple, Spotify, and so forth, and I would create playlists. And I would title my playlist something sexy, like Music to Have Sex By, or What I Think About When Driving 90 Miles Per Hour on the Highway. Something that will catch somebody's attention. And I would put my recording in between other people's recordings. I would put Led Zeppelin, my recording, the Beatles, my recording, the Byrds, my recording, and so forth and so on. Because now your recording is going to be sandwiched between well-known prominent artists, which by association gives you some form of legitimacy to somebody that is viewing it, right? And playlists is how people find a lot of stuff in the music services. So you can seed playlists into the music services, and when somebody searches for a song, it could potentially surface your playlist. They listen to the song they want to hear by the Beatles, but then they'll see your song is next or might autoplay to it, and lo and behold, you've just potentially been exposed to a new fan. So playlists are a great way to get exposure. Now the other way to do it, oddly enough, is off the song title. There's example after example after example of bands that have built up their entire careers by first doing recordings of other people's songs. Jimi Hendrix performing All Along the Watchtower. Whitney Houston singing I Will Always Love You is written by Dolly Parton. Those are two prominent examples. There's an artist, there's a band called Boyce Avenue. Boyce Avenue began their entire career by doing acoustic recordings of other people's songs on YouTube. And they built up a huge fan base and then rolled that into doing their own songs. Remember, just because you're doing a cover doesn't mean you don't own a copyright. You own the recording, you just won't own the lyric and the melody. So you can do cover versions of songs. And if you're going to do cover versions of songs, make them interesting. Don't just try to do a cover of the song the way the original artist did. What's the point of that cover? So if you're going to do a cover, take something like Straight Outta Compton and do an acoustic version of it, the way, oh gosh, I forget her name, from Letters to Cleo did. Or take a song and make sure you put in the title, Straight Outta Compton, the klezmer version, or the jazz version. Because if you're doing a search and you type Straight Outta Compton and you get that up, and I see Straight Outta Compton, the jazz version, I'm probably gonna go, huh, what's that? And I'm gonna click on it, because the new music industry for consumers is you're paying a flat fee to listen to whatever the hell you want, right? So there's no barrier. You just have to intrigue the person to click on the link to listen to it, and if they listen to it, it generates you royalties. Every time it streams on the music services, like Apple Music or Spotify, it generates you royalties, whereas with YouTube, it's contingent upon different variables. But those are some of the things to think about. So for the recording, as the artist, you want to get distributed, you want to register with Sound Exchange, you want to create playlists, you want to think about doing covers, you want to think about the title, think about how you discover music, and do that. That's for the sound recording. That's what I would do there. For the musical composition, right, you got the sound recording and the musical composition. For the musical composition, once you've written that song and made it tangible, you get that copyright, gets recorded, right, gets distributed. 2 separate licenses, 2 separate payments. So for this one, for this copyright, make sure you register with a performing rights organization, also called a PRO. Now in the United States we have ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, GMR. These guys right here, ASCAP, BMI, they're basically open to everybody. These guys here editorially filter who they let in. Go and register with them. What you need to do is you need to show up and say, I'm going to hire you to do the licensing and collection of my public performance that comes with this, okay? Not with this, as these organizations deal with this. And you need to register with them, and there's special ways you have to register with them. When you write a song and make it tangible, you are the songwriter because you wrote it, you are the publisher because you own it, and you're the publishing administrator because you license and collect the money owed for this. And when you become a member of these organizations here, they typically want to know who the songwriter is, right? That one should be pretty easy. It's you. And if you own the whole thing, meaning you wrote the whole song yourself, you say, I did it and I control all of it. And then they want to basically know this one. They want to know who the publisher is, or sometimes the publishing administrator. So they're 2 separate pieces of information you're going to need to give them. If you don't have this, you're like, what the hell is that? You can, this as the songwriter, Joe Smith can substitute for both things. Okay, you can create another company that does this. Or you can hire another person to do this for you, right? Now they're your publishing administrator. You're still the songwriter, they're the administrator. So you want to go and you want to affiliate. That means become a member of these organizations. And every song that you write, you want to register with them because it puts it into their databases and it allows them the ability to know it exists, which then gives them the ability to go around the world and try to collect your money. So that's ASCAP BMI. The other thing I would recommend, and yeah, I'm biased, but it's why I created the company, is you want to join Audium, because we also work for this. We just do it for something called the right of reproduction, which is different than public performance, for something called streaming mechanical royalties in the United States. In other words, every time a recording of your lyric and melody streams in the United States, it generates a royalty owed over here. And what Audium does is we license and collect this money. You can certainly do it on your own, but we just think we're built better for it. We're an outsourced solution. It's all we care about. We certainly don't have the talent, or at least I don't have the talent to write the songs, or Lord knows I wouldn't be doing this. So my recommendation is you become a member of a PRO, performing rights organization. You become a member of a reproduction rights organization, of which in the United States right now there really is only one, that's us. And we'll deal with collecting and licensing your money in the US, and we also do the same thing in Canada, so we can get your money out of 2 countries for you. Outside of that, the affiliation with the PRO, the affiliation with the reproduction rights entity, the registration with Sound Exchange, building playlists, that's kind of where I would start. That should cover your bases in regards to the licensing and collection pipelines. Then it moves into understanding how the money moves, who to bother when the money's not showing up, how to check if the money's there, and so forth. For reproduction rights, mechanical royalties, we do that. The performing rights organization should do that for you in regards to public performance. So that's how I would start and get going.